Alright, so today we're going to be looking at the two knights defense trap for black. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to c4, knight f6, the two knights defense, knight to g5, attacking f7, so d5 to stop it, and now after e takes d5 there are a series of different things you can do. One of them is knight takes d5, however that falls into the fried liver attack, and white has a nice attack on black. So we're not going to look at that in this video. So instead, knight to a5, I think this is one of the more common moves. After the bishop comes in for a check, c6, take, queen to f3, leaves white with a pretty decent game. And instead, if, let's say, b5, bishop takes b5, queen takes, and things are looking about equal. But what we're going to mainly look at today is knight to d4, setting up a little trap. So now it looks rather weird because we're not attacking the bishop directly, and now, instead, white might think that he has time to play d6, regaining communication on f7. So first I'm going to go over what is the right move. In this position, the better move here is c3, attacking the knight. And now we can go b5 if, let's say, our knight is taken, take, and now white is up a pawn, however black does have both of the bishops, and that counts for something. He's going to also have a nice easy road of development, so black should have enough to compensate for that pawn. So now, let's say that instead, the bishop, or the pawn is not taken, the bishop saves itself. Let's say bishop to d3, we can simply develop with bishop to f5. If the bishop takes, the knight is there to recapture. Also, we can look at if the bishop goes back to f1, very interesting. We now have knight takes d5. If the pawn takes the knight, the queen can take this knight. And now, after bishop takes b5, king to d8, something has to be done about the g2 square. So, castles, and now there's a series of things. We have rook to b8, simply attacking the bishop. Stronger, I think, is bishop to b7, threatening some deadly things here with the g2 square and the castled king. So now, I think here the best move is probably queen to f3. It looks rather dangerous just going into the line of the bishop. However, if something as natural as knight to c3 even is played, we have knight to f4, hitting the g2 pawn 3 times, and black has a forced mate in about 4 moves. And if g3, knight to h3 is checkmate. So it's a very interesting idea there. So now let's say that instead white thinks that he has enough time to play d6 since there's no direct threat to the bishop. Now the queen takes d6. And we're going to first look at bishop takes f7 check. King moves to e7, keeping the pressure on the bishop, threatening h6 to kick out the knight. And so now the bishop has to retreat, and after knight takes, pawn takes, h6, knight to f3, e4, the knight is forced back to g1, and now black has a lead in development and a way better game despite being down a pawn. And if, let's say, knight to h4, we have king to f7, protecting against the g6 fork, also now threatening to play g5, winning the knight, and black has a fine game. So now let's take a look at knight takes f7, which is what white has wanted pretty much the entire game, to get the fork on f7. So now, something as simple as queen to c6 is played. And now, if white takes the rook, thinking that he has enough time to save his own rook, he's wrong, because queen to e4 wins the game after the bishop to e2, knight to f3 is checkmate, or queen to e2, knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes c2, and the knight on h8 is going to be lost, and black has a simple win. Now we can also examine the idea of after queen to c6 not taking, however that just results in losing a knight after bishop back, knight takes, pawn takes, king takes, knight, and if anything else then the bishop is lost.